Hello, my dear chess friends. This is Fidemaster Viktor Neustroyev, and today we are going to talk about double attack. I'm going to teach you how to find double attacks in your games, how to avoid them, how to, prevent double attack, and of course, how to create it yourself. Okay, so we are waiting for more people to join us. There is also homework from our previous webinar. So if you remember, I gave you these two positions where your task was to find, this and after this. So I wanted you to find how to play with white pieces here and how to play with black. Okay, so everything is working according to what I see. Yeah, thanks for your email. I got it. Okay, so while we are waiting for more people to join us, let me play a game on chess.com. Does anybody want to play a short blitz game?
Me. I want to
Okay,
play.
okay. Yes, I see. Okay. Um, yeah, let me challenge you. Please go to the live section. Only chess. So play with a friend. Well, why can't I find you? Okay, not random. No. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm playing with white pieces. Okay. So I think today the webinar will be more easy. So those who are 1000, just you will understand almost everything, if not everything. Okay, so it's dragon. Bishop e3, f3, queen d2. Most likely black plays knight c6 in this position. Yeah, then I play g4. No, d5. No. You cannot play d5 here. Then I just chase your knight away. And the pawn becomes hanging. Okay. So let me take. Well, yes, but then I take with my queen. So it looks like black simply sacrificed the pawn here. Okay, f6. What's the purpose of f6? To take on g5. Then f3 is a weakness. Maybe I can sacrifice the pawn on f3. Okay, so I can take here. Then which piece takes? Knight probably takes. Okay, let me take. Knight takes, and then I can castle. So this pawn is still not under the attack because of this discovered attack. So every time the knight takes, I first take on g7. So let's decide what my plan here should be. Well, probably bishop c4 seems like a good move. h5, what's the purpose of h5? To play king h7 and bishop h6? Bishop c4. Yeah, bishop c4. Right. Then I want to play knight e4 move. Yes, it should work. Pawn takes e4. So I connected these pawns. Now f3 is no longer a weakness, and I don't need to care about the pawn on d5. And for this, I prepared bishop e3, of course. So it's not a big issue. Okay, but this is a blunder. I take here. And if bishop takes d1, I take on f8, trying to invade into the enemy camp with my queen. Fine, let me exchange this rook. Queen goes there. What's the purpose? Seems there is no purpose. Okay, let me take. And then I use my rook again. Okay, so people are joining and we are about to start. Just once I finish this game, we will start. And first of all, we will check the homework. Well, no, this is just a queen blunder. So I just take it. Is there a better move? Let's just take. I don't care. Well, it should be over. Rook f7. And I'm preparing a mating net. So here, for example, queen here. Well, I don't think that it does make sense to continue playing to a checkmate. So, well, some may even consider it to be disrespectful. So, well, what do you think? If FIDE master won't defeat you with extra queen, of course he will. Because last time you did have a chance to do a stalemate, but this time there are a lot of pieces on the board. So after king h6, it's just queen f4 and queen g5. Okay, fine. Okay, so
I didn't
let
lose much points.
yeah, sorry. Okay, but if you defeated me, I would lose a lot of points too. Okay, so this was your homework. What are your suggestions here? Well, there were very few answers. One was rook e5, suggested by Paul, if I'm not mistaken, because Paul said rook d5, but probably he meant rook e5. So rook e5, let's check this move. How does it work? Rook e5, rook takes f4. Then what? Probably this, but then it fails. And this is also a weakness. Maybe king g5 to try to save it, but then it's f4. So I think white is winning. The pawn on h4 is lost. Okay, so rook f5 doesn't seem to be a good idea. Any other suggestions, guys? Okay, Alex suggests rook takes e4. Please explain what's the purpose of the exchange. Don't you think that you lose in this pawn and game?
No,
Okay, but why no? So rook a4, d takes a4. What then? Okay, actually, well, let's say this move, take king g5, f3. Now what? Okay, b5. Well, no, b5 before, and they fix your pawn structure. So you can, of course, do this, but instead they have this move. So this endgame is actually losing, and the reason is that your king is tied down to the defense of these two pawns. Now, of course, the king can go back, but it's just a simple win. So c6 king e6, for example, and then just g5. So the king comes closer, and this pawn is promoted. B6, b3, c5 still doesn't make sense because they play this, and then a5. And after before c4, forcing black into Zugzwang, the king moves away and the h4 pawn is captured. So again, here black loses. The only way to not lose the game was to play a5, keeping the flexibility of the pawns. So then what? For example, c4, b5. Not a4, because if a4 it's b3, a takes b3. Well, actually, I think it was also fine. Yeah, it was also fine because there is a reserved tempi. And this is a draw because, well, none of the players may progress. White may try to do a kind of a triangle, but you can do a triangle yourself. Black doesn't have any chances to win. So even if they play with the h pawn and sacrifices, or if they go there, it's too slow because then the h pawn is taken and the g pawn. So the g pawn is a protected pass pawn that the black king has to be tied down to. So c4, then b5 also works, but a4 was okay too. b5, c takes b5, c takes b5, and then the game ends in a draw. So why? For example, just any move, and here a4. If b3, then it's this. So why this? Because in such position, it's white to move. It was not important to not let the black king to stay in the Zogzwang. Well, a bit complicated, especially when you see that you have to exchange the rooks, because, well, if you just play this move, yeah, actually you lose. If you play this move, you still lose because they take on d6, and h4 is always a weakness. So, well, but maybe a rook e5, rook e4, rook e2. Well, it's still losing. So sometimes when there is when you're a pawn down, you can save the game in a rook endgame, but not an opponent game. So that's why, but if you pass the game to opponent game, you have to calculate accurately because every tempo becomes decisive. Okay, then next example. So in this position, I ask you to find the best move. And actually, Paul's suggestion of doing knight c7 was very good. Many of you may think that this is a good move. Well, we are down the exchange, we should win this exchange. No. Then bishop e6. They are attacking our bishop, and if we take, they take with the knight. Well, this knight is trapped. If no, let me explain it. So they take, king takes, the knight is trapped, black is a knight up. If, for example, the bishop retreats, or maybe they take here, then bishop c4, bishop takes h8, king h8, the knight escapes, right? But after rook c8, there is a pawn hanging on c2, so black wins anyway. So that's why the best way was not to capture this trapped rook, but to escape with the knight first. Attacking the rook. Rook b8, rook d1, attacking this knight. So bishop e6 no longer works because you can just take on d4 then. b5 was played in the game, and the knight retreats and gains a tempo because knight e7 is a checkmating threat. Rook b7 defending it. Well, you cannot do this because then the knight takes. So rook d4, they take, and what would you play in this position? There are a lot of good moves, actually, but there is one move that's better than the others. So what would you play? Okay, so those of you who watch this webinar on YouTube, yes, there is a Zoom link. So if you register it, you should receive it. If not, message me at Tricks of Chess, tricksofchess@gmail.com. I'll send you the link. So what are your suggestions, guys? I'm looking at the chat. So e5, right. It's e5, having in mind the idea of the back rank mate. So for example, if they take, it's knight f6, or knight e7 actually. Takes, and this is a checkmate. Well, knight e7 would work too, but it would be a little longer. So that's why after e5, they have to react with f6. Take, then knight takes f6, king f7. Knight goes back, threatening with a fork. Rook goes to d8, because there is nothing else they can do. So for example, if let's say they try to defend it in that way, then we would continue with this move. King goes there, and knight c4, capturing another pawn. So there is more than a full compensation for the exchange. So that's why here black played this move, sacrificed the exchange, and then the game ended in a draw because of the bishops of the opposite color. Okay, fine. So today we're going to focus on double attack. So, well, what you guys need to understand about double attack? Well, it's probably the most simple and the basic tactical motive. So the double attack is an attack on two targets simultaneously. Also, it's called a fork. Well, you may think that you obligatory need to attack two pieces in order to create a double attack. No, it's not right. So it can be a piece and something else. For example, the first target could be an unprotected piece, and the second can be a mating threat or a threat to trap a queen or another piece elsewhere on the board. And actually, any piece can execute a double attack. For example, the queen, especially if the board is open, the rook can attack two targets lying on the same rank or file. The bishop can attack two targets diagonally if they are on the same diagonal, or yeah, if they are on the same diagonal actually. The knight can fork a lot, and this is what is really difficult to visualize if you calculate the line deep enough. So, and the knight can fork up to 7 pieces. Sometimes even the king can initiate a double attack. Okay, so double attack is easy, but it's hard to visualize it if you have to calculate a long line and double attack comes in the end. So how to create it? Well, first of all, you guys need to take a look at the enemy pieces that are not protected or not protected enough. For example, the piece is protected, but you already attacking it. And if you attack it for the same time, for the second time, it will be hanging. So look at these pieces and think of how you can attack them with your other piece and how you can attack something else on the other side of the board. This is how you will initiate a double attack. But okay, so let's come to this concrete position. It was Yuri Averberg playing this game. What would you play here for white? Which hanging pieces you might detect in this position? So what are your suggestions? I'm looking for your moves. So rook capture the knight. Okay, so rook takes d5. Okay, please explain. Okay, so there is bishop f3. Well, okay. So here you have to, in order to create any tactics, you have to think about tactical motives that may appear in this position. Well, bishop f3 is one of them. What does the bishop do? Attacks g2, potentially attacks c6, d5, and even the rook on a8. So this is a very interesting move that we should analyze in details. But before doing it, we need to think about something else. So what something else we can do? Well, this move is also kind of a double attack. We attack e8 and d5 at the same time. So we can, if we get rid of this knight, then we can easily get rid of the pawn by taking it. And also we can play bishop f3, which will be double attack on this rook and maybe the other rook, or maybe the pawn on d5. So maybe we can combine it. And that's why you come up with the idea that probably rook takes d5 work here, right? So rook takes d5. Another suggestion is to play this move, but it seems a little slow because it allows them to retreat back with the bishop and cover the f6 square with the bishop. So instead, yes, it does make sense to take. Well, there is no better move but to take back and then knight f6. And here the key is that the king has only two squares, which in fact he even doesn't have. Why? Okay, so we want the king to go there, after which we can fork by taking on d5, and we will be attacking this king and bishop simultaneously, and that will compensate the loss of the exchange. Even that would provide us with more advantage. Probably the king can go to d8 and f8, but if you look at this position, you will definitely realize that the king is limited. If he goes there, you can attack it with this move, forcing him to go to e7, and after that it falls under a double attack. If he goes there, then you can do a similar move, but on the other side, and again the king has to go there, and then you take on d5. So this is what happened in the game, and after knight takes b4, white obtained decisive advantage. Oh, well, of course the game continued, so it was this, but you see, white is already winning. So bishop b7, it's possible to deliver a check, but bishop d5 was played in the game to neutralize the bishop. Rook c8 attacking here, but check first. Then if the king goes there, it's a fork. So the king goes there, it's a fork anyway. And if the king goes here, it falls under a discovered attack. So the king has to go to f8 only, then just c3. And yes, white is winning. Well, why? Because with this bishop and the knight, they can stop all these pawns. Taking on h7 right away is a mistake, but you may consider it later. So rook f5, knight goes to e4, rook c6, h4, supporting the bishop so the knight can move. If, let's say, in this position, they try to attack this piece in order to capture this bishop, they would still blunder a fork with knight d6. Well, this is how white successfully finished the game. We can just quickly go through the game to the very end, and you'll see it. Before trying to create a pass pawns on the other side. So rook e1, this is the object of the attack. The c5 works as an outpost for the knight too. So f6, king c2, rook goes there to attack, but bishop h6, there was a pawn exchange, then the bishop goes back. Finally, the knight goes to the outpost, trying to undermine, but a3. So the key idea is that white is about to promote these pawns, but these pawns are stopped with the rook and bishop activity. So king e6, and now b6. So b7 and b8. So what they can do to stop is just to bring the knight back or to bring the rook back, but even this doesn't work. Why? You just bring the king here and then the pawns. So king f5 was played on b7, and they resigned. Why? Because if they played this move, how would you guys play here? So waiting for your suggestions. Yes, thank you. Yes, it's knight d6 definitely. If the rook takes, you promote. If the rook doesn't take, but the king moves, then you block with knight c8 and then you promote anyway. Okay, perfect. So that was a very simple, well, not very simple, but a simple double attack. You play rook d5, knight f6, and knight d5. How we were able to visualize it? Well, first of all, we definitely see a nice check on f6, but we cannot deliver this check because of the knight. Second, we see that if we sacrifice the rook and then we capture on d5, at least we attack the bishop. Is there a way to attack something else? Yes, it probably can be the king, but our task is to find how to chase the king to the e7 square to fall under the attack, which is not a big problem for us because we can use our dark squared bishop. However, you can also consider bishop f3 in your games. If you see that rook d5 doesn't work right away, maybe it does make sense to play bishop f3 first. Okay, fine. Let's continue with the second example. Well, take a look at this position and tell me what you have in mind here. Well, white has an isolated pawn, so what we typically do with an isolated pawns? How do we attack it? So this is a situation which is easy to blunder because by the first glance, it seems that everything is protected and there is no risk for white. I would say white is trying to defend the position, so they're definitely worse. And even if there was no tactical strike, maybe slowly, but white would lose the game. Okay, so what your suggestions are here? I'm. Mhm. By the way, guys, so I think thank you for your suggestions regarding the topics for the webinars. I think the next webinar will be about solid chess. So how to play solid chess. Okay, thank you, Paul. It would be great if you could send it as a private message. Alex, same to you. So please send your answers as a private messages in Zoom. Okay, fine. So, well, what we typically do with isolated pawns, we blockade them, so we block them, and then we undermine it. If you, for example, decide to undermine it right away, it won't work. Well, why? Because of several reasons. So, first of all, they may take, you take, they take, and it doesn't hang because there is a queen protecting it. Maybe you first deliver this nice check, but then king h2 and still you have your rook hanging, so you have no time to capture the knight. But if you do this, then the knight is protected. So that's why undermining right away doesn't work. Also, you cannot undermine because they can push d5. So if you want to undermine, you need to have something on d5 to block the pawn manually. But you can take on d4 directly, and you're about to get rid of a pin by taking the queen or the knight. So that's why they have to take on d4. You take rook takes rook, and then it's queen e1, king h2, and queen e5, taking advantage of the pin. Oh, taking advantage of the fork and the fact that the king is on h2. This is what white missed. It was actually famous famous Soviet master Radmir Khalmov who blundered it. So it's easy to blunder such things when a double attack is not played in the very beginning, but in the end of 3, 4, 5 moves combination. Okay, perfect. So how to play here? The game continued with queen g3. Queen takes d4, black is a pawn up, and the rest is devoted to the technique of how to realize this advantage. So queen b8, king g7, queen a7, and this is where, guys, I want you to make a choice. The queen double attacks these two pawns. What do you think, which of them to capture and why? It would be great if you can explain why. You can unmute yourself. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for your answers, of course, but well, you should explain why you think that the f2 pawn should be captured, and or why you think that the b2 pawn should be captured right away. So there is a scenario in which white may draw the game, but what should happen? Well, of course, the drawing scenario happens here in case if there is a perpetual check. So if white can deliver perpetual check to the king, or in case if, for example, we have 2 versus 3 on that side. On one side. If we play on the two sides, then black is likely to win. So that's why here, if you take on b2, you get a symmetric pawn structure, right? And it's hard for you to get this as a passed pawn. If you take on f2, you let them create a passed pawn here, but at the same time, you have a clear way to promote the e pawn. So yes, that's right. So doing queen f2 is better. Then b4 e5, queen c7, attacking this and also keeping an eye on this, but queen d4. Yeah, so the idea is to go to imbalanced structure. So here the king can be covered with the f6 pawn. It is important. So a4 was played, e4. The best move, well, white played queen e4 in this position, but the best move is definitely a5. a5, pawn takes, e3, a6, e2. If they play this move, how would you continue? So they try to stop it. Yeah, so it's queen f4, queen f1, and then e1 equals queen. So queen f4, even if g3 is played, it's queen f2 first, and then e1 equals queen. Or in case if king goes there, it's queen f1 and e1 equals queen. So black promoted much faster. So queen e7 doesn't work, but But queen g3 may work because they are covering the king as well as threatening to cover this queen in square. What would you play then? What's your opinion? If you want to succeed, if you want to get the pawn promoted. With your queen, you already stopped the a6 pawn. Oh, queen a1 is a very nice idea, but I'm not sure if it works. So queen a1, a7. Well, probably you have to take, because if you promote, then they take and they promote too. So you should take it. Ah, but then they deliver a check and take your pawn, so it's a draw. No, queen a1 doesn't work. It should be something else. f5. Brian, what's the purpose of f5? To play f4? But don't you think that with this move you weaken your king, so some queen c7 ideas can be played? I'm not sure that... well, a7, let's say. Again, queen a7, it's queen e5. So because a7 is a threat, which means that the a pawn will be exchanged for the e pawn, some prophylaxis should be played first. What do you think? Which kind of prophylaxis I'm talking about? f6. Yes, exactly. It's f6 covering this square. So, for example, queen c7, king h6. And after this check, it's fine to play g5. So queen e1, and in this position, just queen d6 check, the king goes away, and we take. So we are 2 pawns up, and this is, of course, winning. So queen d3, queen d1, and that's it. Even if they are able to protect with the king, we can successfully exchange the queen, sacrifice the pawn on e2, and then win this 3 versus 2 pawn endgame. So even a5 lost, but queen e4 lost even quickly. b4. Queen e5, king f8, there were some checks, but because of a cross check, so you see here, for example, queen c6, queen d6, because of this opportunity to deliver a cross check, the white's checks are limited, and that's why there is no perpetual check. So this is the only logical check, and then queen d6 a cross check. So king goes away to deliver a check on d5. But queen c4, so we are covering the squares that this queen may use to check our king. g4, h6, queen e4, king e6. So, well, we are 2 pawns up, and then we can successfully realize advantage because, well, the king is not so compromised here. There were some repetition, and finally queen d3, queen c1, b5. Again, queen c6 check, queen d6. And here again, the number of checks is limited. So queen b7, the king goes there and then escapes here. h4, b3, king g3, and then queen d3 check was played. And after king f4, it was queen d6, and white resigned. So why after b3 he has to move the king? Can't he instead move the pawn? Well, if that happens, g takes h5, g takes h5, it's possible to play this and take it just. So king g1. Well, you can either take right away, or you can first do this move, threatening with queen d1, b1. Because if h6, this is what you're gonna do. And the king can always get hidden. It can even go to e3 if needed. Okay, fine. So the key was to identify that there is a double attack by the end of the combination. How did we find that there is a double attack? So we did notice this check, and we did realize that the only square for the king is h2. And then what else our queen can do to that king on h2? Definitely deliver a check from e5. But if there is a piece on e5, if there was a piece on d4, I mean. So if there is a pawn on d4, such a check is impossible. But with a piece on d4, the queen e5 move would make a fork. Okay, so now we continue with the next example. So Viktor Kachnoi was playing with white pieces. What would you do in this position? How to create a double attack? Okay, so there is a suggestion of doing 95. Am I right? What's the purpose of this move? The idea is to play d6. Okay, so 95, bishop e5, so d6 cannot be played. But even if I took with the pawn, d6, okay, knight c6, can I play knight c6? So I don't think there is a purpose of doing this. No, it's unlikely to work. What else can be played in this position? So look at your pieces, look at the queen side, and look at how enemy pieces are stuck on the 7th and 8th rank. And that can give you a hint. So rook c1 is suggestion by Paul. Well, you add pressure here. But I don't think that you actually threaten to take. You take, they take. Then what? You sacrifice the queen? They take with the knight. No, I don't think it works. Rook c1 probably doesn't make any sense. Or if you think it does make sense, Paul, please explain, because I don't see the purpose of playing this move. Okay, so knight b6, knight c4. Well, this is interesting because you're attacking d6. Okay, rook g1. Again, rook g1 is nice if you mean this, but there are two knights covering g6. So, guys, it's not so difficult. I thought that this webinar will be too simple for you, but looks like it's not. Well, you cannot find a simple continuation here. Okay, so I'm not asking you to win a lot of material. I'm asking you to gain at least a pawn. King c1. Brian, what's the purpose of king c1? Okay, Liliana suggests rook a7 or bishop a7 with the idea of gaining the material back. Okay, so those of you who suggest bishop a7, so what do you have in mind? So rook a8, then knight b6, then rook takes, and you take on c8 with the knight takes on c8, rook takes on c8, queen d7. So looks like you just sacrifice the bishop and then you gain the bishop. And you also exchanged what? You also exchanged the knight. So I don't think there is advantage after this. So, well, bishop a7 is definitely the move that deserves our analysis. So fork, this is how we give up the bishop. But then if we take on c8, knight takes, rook takes, and queen goes to d7. So how do we win? And why this position is so good? Well, because this rook is trapped. Well, yeah, the rook is restricted. So this is this is one of the ideas. But is this enough? Unlikely, because these pieces also cannot enter the black's camp. And here, just sooner or later, b6 or b5. Well, and we should just find something of how to deal with en passant move. Or maybe we actually play queen b5 in this position, because if you decide to create a discovered attack with something like knight e5, you can get this move. But I think that queen b5 is risky. At least queen d7 is enough. Or maybe queen e7 and then knight d7 and b5 or b6. Well, I don't know, but of course, white is better, but not really much. So let's go back. Okay, so looks like there are no more suggestions. And actually, the move that I wanted you to find was this, but not knight takes c8, but rook takes c8. What's the purpose? The purpose of this move is to deliver another fork. Now this knight on c8 delivers a fork. And so if, for example, black decides to protect the pawn on d6, they lose the rook for free, after which the knight escapes with the same maneuver. That's why they should move the rook, and this is how they lose a pawn and you gain the exchange back. So sacrificing the rook on c8 with the idea of gaining a pawn and some material back was the key. So, well, here you may say, but they may not accept the sacrifice. We just exchange the bishops. What's the purpose? Well, guys, but which move do we play? The queen is under attack. Is it queen b5? So after queen b5, we can at least play rook d8 and grab this pawn for free, threatening with a discovered attack. Again, this doesn't make sense because of rook f2, but this move is, for example, very nice. They have to take on c8 and give up the queen. The queen is simply trapped. So that's why they have to take and fall under another fork. Now the rook escapes and knight d6. So the queen moves. Knight takes f7. Here black decided to gain the tempo with rook c8, and this is the position that I would like to play against you. So you are a pawn up, and let's see if you can take advantage of this, if you can capitalize your extra pawn. Actually, your position is completely winning. You have a pawn on d5. It's a passed pawn. Just try to consolidate your pieces, come up with a winning plan, and not blunder anything. So who wants to play? We are going to chess.com. So play. So okay, that's right. Here, 15 plus 10. Here we choose fin. Am I sharing the screen, by the way? Looks like not. Let me. Yeah, now I'm sharing the screen. Oh, it's not Blitz, it's 15 plus 10. Because I'm going to play a few games simultaneously. Okay, so invite link for those of you who wants to play. You can click it. It's in the chat. You can click on it, and I challenge Joanna. So let me see if everything is correct. Yes, it is. Who else wants to play? Please let me know. But remember to make the first move within the 40 seconds. If the first and the second, otherwise chess.com will abort the game. So who else wants to play? Queen a2. Okay, fine. Queen takes f7. I will try to take advantage of my bishop, if I can activate it, of course. Anybody else wants to play? So either click on the link or tell me your username. Yeah, you have to play quickly. Otherwise, the game will be aborted. The second move have to be played. Okay, queen b3, fine. Queen b3. So probably white is going to play b5 here. Well, what I should do, I think I should activate my pieces. So I'm going to play knight d7 because it looks like the knight cannot go anywhere else. So I lost the control over the F file, but it was easy for white to obtain this control. So queen e7. Queen a2. Maybe I can start with some immediate actions. I was thinking about, well, no, I cannot. There is no way I can invade with my queen. Yeah, the problem is that my pieces are restricted. So even if I play b6 and they take, oh, b6, b5, well, okay, I'm trying to activate the bishop first. So, Brian, you can, okay, what I'm gonna do, guys, I will send you a file here in the chat, and you all take a look at this position. Think about what you should do in the next few moves. And then once you're ready, challenge me. So this is how you have time to think before we start the game. Okay, bishop comes to e2. What's the purpose? Probably it goes to a4. What I can do? I wanted to try b6, but I don't want to lose on a6, but maybe I have to. Okay, my knight cannot go anywhere, and this bothers me. So queen... I can play bishop d6 if I move my queen away. Where do I move my queen? Because I don't want to give up the control over f7 square root 2. Okay, I want to try this move actually. Maybe it's not a good idea, but let's think. So blockade, but the queen, well, yeah, this is the move I actually was expecting, and I think it's completely fine for me. Okay. Another game, fine. So the queen is under attack. Okay, you have to play the move, otherwise the game is aborted. Okay, unfortunately it is. Okay, so rook f7. Didn't I play king g8 here? King g8. Because it seems that the rook has to move away, back to f1, right? And this is what I was expecting. And now I wanted to play, well, I wanted to play this move. Or maybe this move. No, well, I don't want the rook to enter my camp like that, so bishop e7 first. Maybe it wasn't a good idea, but anyway. Oh, I can also try to do queen c3, well, like that. Okay, so b5, I was expecting b5. I mean, I was expecting bishop a4 and prepared b5. Again, so anyone else who wants to play, this is the link. After en passant, I have to take with my knight. It seems, yeah, yes, exactly. Okay. So if I move the queen, it's d6. So let me move the king. To stop it. I make the e5 pawn vulnerable too. I understand it. But it's hard to maneuver in this position. How? Yes. Okay, so now my knight and queen are tied down. Okay, so let's decide how to play. So I was thinking about rook c4 idea. So bishop takes, pawn takes, then knight jumps to c5, then I exchange, and then I lose on e5. That it doesn't look good. So doing queen c7 doesn't make sense. Well, it's hard to play here. So queen b8 and bishop d6 then. Yeah, let's do this. So, well, I would love to get uh, my bishop on my knight on d6, but it's impossible. So that's why I have to play uh, with my bishop to d6. So the knight doesn't come there. I'm defending this enough times, so rook takes rook, and my queen is flexible. Ah, rook c6, this is what I missed. Yeah, nice idea. Mhm. Maybe I'd better take on c8 first. Okay, so this. I have to move the knight. Then the position becomes more open, so I don't want it. If I just play something else, like rook f2, it's this. Okay, looks like if I want to play for a counterplay, I have to activate my rook. So rook c8. Okay, let me pin the knight. I'm not sure if I can invade, but I have some ideas here. So rook c8, maybe queen a7 does make sense. Well, there is also a very nice move, bishop before, but bishop before, queen takes c8, queen e7. Now, maybe it's fine too. I can just retreat with the rook back. Yeah, it's fine too. So rook c8 doesn't work. Now, rook a6. Well, rook a6 works. Queen here. This is a kind of a threat. So I should expect rook a7. Maybe not in this position. Oh, and then what? Queen c6? Yeah, queen c6. So I take pawn takes, then my knight is under attack. And if I move it after c7, I cannot stop this pawn. So that's why I cannot exchange the queens. I can try this, this, and then this. But I can lose it. So it's better for me to keep the queen. And it seems that I have to retreat to e7 only. d6. Okay, right. So where do I move my queen? To e8 or d8? So e8 I'm pinned. And if I play d8, bishop e6. Well, it should be d8 anyway. Queen c7 can be played. Queen e8. Well, maybe rook d8 was a better move here. I want to keep my pieces active. No, it's a losing position. Okay, anyway, what can I do? King h8. First. So rook f8. Yeah, but the problem is that still my queen is restricted. Bishop d5 to promote. Yeah, there is not much I can do. Okay, yeah, let me resign. Well, I don't know. I can also play a few more moves, but I think it's already over. So, well, I don't know. Queen c8 probably. King on c7. Well, okay, and this is losing. Okay, so let me resign. Let's do a game review. So in my opinion, white really played very strong. Inaccuracy, queen e2. And bishop b3 is inaccuracy. Okay, so let's upload it and analyze together. Okay, so I'm sharing, no. Let me share the screen again. Portion of the screen, share, and let's go to the top with the webinars. So, okay, so queen a2, maybe not the best move, but let's see. Then, of course, I have to take. So that's why, guys, if you have time to think, you will definitely find the first move. Well, it's, for example, can be a queen move. And, well, knight c5 was played in the game originally. But queen e2 should be fine too. Queen f7 and queen b3. Well, I played this. It's not a mistake, but bishop f8 is still okay. This is fine. This is not a problem at all because after king g8, the rook has to go back. Then this, bishop is7, so bishop a4, and this is where I made a mistake. So it seems that maybe just back to f8 was possible. But b5, I don't believe that b5 is a mistake. Bishop b3, which is an accuracy. It was better to take. Then knight takes b6. So not the queen, because if queen takes b6, it's d6. And then bishop c6. And then I thought that I'm in trouble. So this is the line that I calculated. So here I wanted to play rook f8 to exchange the rooks or try to enter the enemy camp on the king side. Bishop b3, king g7. So maybe king h8 was a better move. So it's again, it's not a mistake. Rook c1, and maybe bishop d6 is a mistake because I simply missed rook c6. Maybe I'd better play rook takes rook. Yes, rook takes rook, but I'm still losing here. The queen invades. And then it's knight c5. So yeah, it's a losing position anyway. So bishop d6 is inaccuracy, but rook c6, rook f8. And in this position, queen f8 is a mistake. But how this move can be a mistake? So I'm actually, I started engine now and I see that, yes, it is not the best way to play. But so what was the best way to play? Just a king move with no purpose. No, okay. So queen f8 is at least logical. Rook d6, queen d6. And this is losing regardless of what I play. So even if here I played queen e8, it could be a6 right away. Yes, and this queen c7, and that was clever. I missed that there is bishop d5 at the very end. Oh, and this is just completely losing position. Moreover, I actually expected this, then pawn takes, rook takes, bishop takes, so they're about to promote. So this move, but after bishop b7, they promote anyway. This is what I expected. And this is where I wanted originally to resign, but queen f8 and d takes c7, so white promotes. So in my opinion, white plays too strong. What do you think? Especially considering that... Okay, let me share the screen once again. Especially considering current level. So rapid 800 and blitz 700. So how is it possible to play so well having such low ratings? It's a bit suspicious. Okay, but let's talk about the webinar. Let's talk about the game, and I want to check out. I want to go through the game between Korchnoi and Enrico Paoli. So here, I think white played the most logical move, knight c5, attacking the queen and blocking this attack. So there is no way to exploit this pin. b6 will be never played, so queen f7. And then rook f1, preventing the queen's invasion. What then? So queen e7, queen d3. Well, rook d8. Well, it's difficult to suggest anything, and the queen goes there. Now king g8 to prevent invasion. What do you think your next steps should be? Well, I'm sure many of you here say that bishop c4, I agree, but then rook d6 and the pawn is blocked. So what do you think you should continue with white? What is the winning plan? Who knows? Well, knight e6, Brian, yes, you're right, but how it's possible to play knight e6 if there is a pin? So right now, it definitely not, but moving the king away and then knight e6. So here, ideally, you need to play something like that. Queen c7, king b3, queen e7, queen f2. Well, it's the same, queen e3 or queen f2. Queen c7, knight e6 was played. So, for example, if knight e6, it's d takes e6. Well, e7 becomes a threat. That's why queen e7. But then it's this, and the rook invades. It's a completely winning position, even despite that the bishops are of the opposite color. Here, it doesn't really matter because white simply captures these pawns, and this bishop is out of the place of action at all. Okay. So what then? Queen e7. Queen c5, as I said, this move, and then after king c3, black simply resigned. Why? Now, okay, let's say, for example, I don't know, let's say knight h7 is played. How would you continue this time? What do you think? So, by the way, this webinar is recorded, and tomorrow I'm going to send the recording, the link to the recording of this webinar to everyone who registered, as well as the homework. Okay, so the plan is to play queen c7 here, exchange the queens. Maybe take even, and then knight goes back, attacking b7, and then d6 with a check and invasion of the f7. So let's say queen c7, queen takes queen, knight takes queen. Rook d7, knight goes to e6, and the knight still goes there. Because if the rook will be staying on these two squares, then it's d6 with a tempo, and b7 is lost. And this is how the game was could be won. Okay, fine. So I have a homework for you. And if you want to support my webinars, there is a link that there is a link that you can click on to donate. I'm going to paste it in the chat. So it's really easy. Click this button, donate. Then you can enter the amount that you would like to donate, and then you click PayPal. After that, the money will be automatically, no, you have to enter your PayPal account, and after that, the money will be automatically delivered to my account. So if you enjoy our webinars, if you want to support them, if you want me to prepare a better content, then that would definitely help me. Okay. Fine. So what else? Let's now talk about the homework. This is the homework that I prepared for you. So there are two positions where your task is to find a double attacking tactical idea. Well, they are not easy and not hard, so they are average. I'm sure every participant of our today's webinar can find it. So the first position is a little complicated. Well, it's white to move, and your task is to find the best way. So here you actually win either the material, maybe you can checkmate too. And on the second one, I think it's easier. Here with black pieces, your task is just to gain the material. That's all. I'm going to send this homework to you here as well as tomorrow together with a recording. And so all answers and all suggestions can be sent to tricksofchess@gmail.com. So the email is here. Wait a sec, my camera is not working. Okay, now it is. So I'm going to sum everything up. So that I was telling about today. So just, okay, share. So today we were working on double attacks. And what I want you to remember from the webinar, at least, is that the double attack is not only the attack of two hanging pieces. It can be an attack of a piece and, for example, a threat on the other side of the board. Moreover, it can be any threat, like a trap of a piece or a checkmating threat or a threat to improve your pieces on the other side. For example, you fork the king and at the same time get your knight to the outpost on the very next move, which was hard to achieve through the other squares, but it's so easy if you deliver a fork and the check to the king. So what else? How to notice this double attack? You need to look for enemy hanging pieces, at least not protected pieces, or the pieces that are not protected enough. By saying pieces that are not protected enough, I mean pieces that are protected, but at the same time are already attacked with your pieces. If you attack for the second time, you'll be threatening to take them. At least this is what I want you to remember from today's webinar. Okay, guys, thank you for coming and see you next Sunday with a I think with a better webinar, with more complicated webinar, how to play solid chess. Okay, bye-bye.